What am I missing on this Trinidad Chambliss situation? We bring in Dalen Flowers from Ole Miss 365 to tell me. And Ole Miss football, well, it got a little bit better today. We'll explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the number one sports podcast network in America because of you taking in content like this, and thank you very much for that. On today's show, Ole Miss added a couple of new coaches to their roster, and we'll explain exactly what that means and what their role might be for Ole Miss moving forward. We'll talk about that with Dalen Flowers from Ole Miss 365, and we'll talk, of course, the Trinidad Chambliss situation with his hearing coming up on Thursday. This feels like an open and shut case for me. That's the obvious outcome of what is going on. So we talk about what, if anything, I might be missing, and we'll talk with Dalen Flowers about that as well. All of this and more is coming up on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, and that is your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, but putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. So, looking at this Trinidad situation, anybody that's listened to the show knows my confidence level of what's going on and what we've talked about and bringing all that. So, you start to feel like you're getting overconfident about a situation. So, I'm trying to think about what specific thing I could be wrong about, and I brought in Dalen Flowers to do that. Now, Dalen, what am I missing in this Trinidad case, if anything?
That's a great question, man. Honestly, I don't know if you're missing much. I think that you continue to look at the filings of the lawsuit. You continue to look at, I guess, the national coverage it is bringing as well. But also, I'm value to think what kind of decisions are going into this based on two things. Number one, money revenue. I think that's not being talked about enough in terms of having Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacy in the backfield for Ole Miss this upcoming season. What type of money revenue that will bring in for college football and the SEC and for Ole Miss in general, and how important that will be, and which I think should be a very peculiar mind of thinking going into this trial Thursday. Also, I think that this is something that is becoming such a national topic, Stephen, that will essentially foresee how things will change within the future of college football, in my opinion. I think that it's important to understand that this case right here may affect how different players go and try to fight eligibility throughout college football and other college sports as well in future years, and how that may affect schools, GMs trying to monitor things, and how that will affect the NCAA moving forward in terms of allowing eligibility for certain players and not allowing eligibility for certain players. So I don't necessarily know if you're missing anything. Honestly, I think everything is starting to come out more and more by the day. I think we've seen, or at least I've seen the recent newscast when Trinidad was at Ferris State, just talking about his medical redshirt year, his redshirt year there, and the things that went into that nature of why he's now continuing to file another lawsuit because equity is not being filed for him and his team. So I'm wanting to say that this will go into Trinidad and Ole Miss's favor Thursday, but you never honestly know at this point. But I will give props to Ole Miss and Pete Golding. Again, even if Trinidad Chambliss does come back, having Walker Howard and Deuce Knight in your quarterback room stands for one of the best quarterback rooms in the country. Without them, I still think Ole Miss will be fine in that department. But I think Ole Miss is prepared for that situation if it do go wrong. But to answer your question again, man, like you keep on visiting this topic, you keep on talking about this topic, and it's like, what is the NCAA not really understanding? Like, why are we continuing to elongate this for as long as this continuing to go on? It's February. Before you know, it'll be spring ball. Like, Ole Miss wants to get this taken care of. Trinidad Chambliss wants to get this taken care of, and I'm sure Ole Miss fans do as well.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, and I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, I think the NCAA wants to take L's in these three major cases, the Charles Bediako, the Trinidad Chambliss, and the Joey Aguiar cases back to back, so they can go to Congress and cry and play victim and say we can't do our job because of the mean old state courts and we need help. And could you please pass the SAVE Act? And if everybody remembers, the NCAA kind of shadily started advertising the SAVE Act during the football season as a way to save women's sports. And I think that is the point. Now, the NCAA is going to put their best foot forward, but I don't think there's any chance that they think they're going to win.
Yeah, I think this kind of throws into the case of, in a way, maybe the NCAA thinking this whole elongated thing is going to disallow other players to feel like they can do this in the future, which will avoid them to have to be in this situation at all moving forward. But I think in essence, especially if Trinidad Chambliss and his team wins, is only going to prolong these things, especially in the near future for players that essentially feel like they have the right to continue playing at a certain level for a longer period of time than allow, but as well actually diving in and depicting the prior cases of Trinidad Chambliss at Ferris State or other players at previous schools in different divisions that then bring in a different montage of what can be allowed in Division One. But I think that as much as some people, really may not care, I think it's really big to understand just how informative this will be on the national outlook. I think if you're Ole Miss, getting Trinidad Chambliss back in 2026 obviously will be huge. I think it may be the difference of maybe being in the preseason rankings as a top 5, top 10 team to maybe be, inside the 20. So I think it's important that Ole Miss has continued to diverge in this, but as well, Pete Golding has done a fantastic job since becoming the head coach at hiring right people in the right places so that his focus and his momentum can be in the right places and not concerned about whether this does not go Ole Miss's way. So I think he's continued to do a great job in preparing for the upcoming season and getting staff members in at all levels to continue to develop and elevate the type of program he wants to have here at Ole Miss. So again, give props to Pete Golding for what he's been able to do as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Walker Jones last week, and he mentioned that one thing that was really not necessarily unexpected, but something that really helped Ole Miss in December was Pete's ability to multitask.
Yeah.
And, with everything going on, he's hiring his staff. He's trying to retain players. He's hitting the portal. He's getting a team ready for the playoff. You needed a coach that could multitask with everything that was going on. And because of that, I have very, very little concern that no matter how Thursday goes, he's not going to be ready for any such possibility.
Yeah, I love that point that you make, actually, because it kind of, I think people are really understanding, and players and people that I'm sure that have been around him know that he's a go-getter. Pete Golding's a go-getter. He's a grinder. He wants to win at all costs. He will get under your skin, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to help elevate his team, his program, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that you look back at the history of his whole coaching career, and just look at with the coaches that he's been with. Obviously, at the top of that is Nick Saban. You kind of looked at it as like, okay, he's never been head coach before. How prepared will he be for the situation? But seemingly fitting, you look back at it and you just had to think he's done a fantastic job at this. And that is really remarkable for him. It's really remarkable for his team. It's really remarkable for Keith Carter to have that faith in him at that time and to not look elsewhere or not look outside the program for another head coach and to sit there and say, this is our guy. And he's come in and shown that he is the guy for Ole Miss and he is going to do whatever it takes to keep this program at a national level. And I think you look at it as well in terms of not only just winning in the playoffs and getting to the college football playoff semifinal, but like you said, Ole Miss shot up in the high school recruiting ranks before National Signing Day. They've done really darn well in the transfer portal. They've retained a lot of players, and they brought in staff members that are legitimized, have had great coaching careers, and are respected around the recruiting and football ranks as well. So Pete Golding has done a fantastic job, and I'm just excited to see what the spring and fall ball will look like prior to the season, because I think you may see some changes possibly in, the spring game for Ole Miss this year and things of that nature. But I'm definitely excited to see what Pete Golding will continue to bring to the table for Ole Miss. He's done a fine, good job so far. And I feel like as well, I'm not just saying that from an Ole Miss perspective. I feel like you can be a fan, a coach from any program throughout this country, and you just respectfully have to say the same exact thing about what Pete Golding has been able to do. put into bar over the last, 2.5, 3 months lately.
All right. So when we come back, we are going to talk to Dalen about what we might be able to expect different from Pete Golding, a little bit about Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacy and Lucas Carnero being the three best players at their position in college football, potentially backing all of that. We're going to talk with Dalen Flowers to see exactly how that is going to shake out and whether or not they're going to have a real spring game again. We'll look for that right after this. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those of you who showed there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Listen, Coach O has the Lady Rebs 19-5 after a weird loss to Alabama, but I'm reminded of what Lady Rebels basketball was when she first arrived. The difference between that and what we're seeing right now. Now the question is becoming, will they be good enough to host a game in the NCAA tournament? It's weird that we've gotten to that point, and congratulations to them for that. And with some tough games left, we are about to find out that situation. They play 4 games in like a week. And so it's not quite Sewanee 1899, but it's on up there with a very challenging schedule for the Lady Rebels. These remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. That's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra file, that grit, that I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights that make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. Head to a Mazda dealer to test drive one today. All right, and the new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and how it feels. That is why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Listen, my wife addicted to Wayfair. I came home the other day, 2 giant bookcases set up for the living room to be put together. Also 2 statues. There's a pelican statue that got decorative. And there's also a rug now in the kitchen. All of that got taken by my wife. She's smiling ear to ear. I'm putting stuff together and all of that, which was surprisingly easy, by the way. But it lets you know that Wayfair, once they get involved with it, they really get involved with it, and they can do absolutely everything you need for a full home refresh in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. I love that I could find the pieces that match my style without spending a fortune, and the shopping was easy. Delivery was smooth, and everything arrived exactly as I expected. So get organized, refresh, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast in America. That won't be forgotten. You've already lived your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com and check the link down in the show notes below to learn more. And don't forget, when you sign up for Supercast, there's a lot of you that signed up for it that hasn't done this. Be sure to sign up for the Discord. That gets you into the exclusive Locked On Discord, and I will send you an invite for my own personal Discord, where me and my favorite Ole Miss fans get together and talk football every day. So that is in the offering for you, but only if you sign up for the Locked On Discord right now. You can get that with the $5 a month Everydayer Club or $50 a year. Now, Dalen, you mentioned something that's got my attention. You said, will they have a spring game this year? And listen, nobody was more embarrassed about what went on in the spring than I was the last couple of years. The hot dog eating contest was almost disrespectful to the game of football. It's just going out there and having an elementary school field day as opposed to anything else and expecting people to come out and see it. I think Pete Golding, and I wonder if you think this as well, would take spring as an opportunity to let you get to know these kids. And by playing open practices from time to time, scrimmages, spring game, because I know you're going to have to close it down in the fall, but the spring is where everything's made.
Yeah, I think it's big for a lot of different reasons, especially within the portal, which it is today. Now, you got to think about a lot of these guys are coming in for a year and then you're, going to the next level, or some, go to another school. And it doesn't really give time and opportunity for fans from any school, especially Ole Miss, that have done the spring ball the way that they've done over the last 2 or 3 years, any opportunity to really know too much about players and see players up close and meet players and build a sense of relationship before the fall comes. And then you're going through the summer ranks and trying to figure out, okay, who are these guys on Locked On Ole Miss talking about? Well, I heard he's from Syracuse, but like, how do I know about him? So I think the spring ball is really important. It gives those guys coming in already early an opportunity to be on the field, get some real game time in front of people, and then build some kind of real life chemistry as well early on. They'll maybe in a way also allow some of these coaches to sit there, watch real time to see what these new guys are doing and kind of analyze their game, give them tips and give them more opportunities to learn about themselves in that early period. But as well, give some of those incoming freshmen a good opportunity to scout and play and learn different ropes as well. But I think the spring ball is crucial no matter what pivot you're in, no matter what the situation is. And I think it's something that is definitely become a lost cause, not just at Ole Miss, but in general around the nation. Other schools have stopped doing it completely as well. And I think it's something that getting back to it is really important, especially for a team that you're kind of going to see a lot of new faces, especially I think on both sides. Honestly, I think you're going to see a lot of new guys in the wide receiver room for Ole Miss. You're going to see a few new guys in the O-line room. I think Ole Miss fans would love to see what Walker Howard and Deuce Knight can potentially bring to the Ole Miss team in that spring portion, which I think I remember a few years ago, which is when I first kind of got on you, and Spencer Sanders was here, Walker Howard was here in 2023, kind of competing for Jackson Dart. And I was able to see what they were able to bring, what they did really well, and how I guess Jackson Dart kind of felt about that competition. As you saw, he felt really strongly about it. But I think it's a good opportunity just to get a good feel of the players, get a good feel of the game for the team as well. But also, I think it builds competition. You go out there, you see your teammates that obviously you have a great relationship with, but you may be number 2 in the depth chart, and you may be on number 1, and you're watching what he's doing. You're competing. You want to be that number 1 guy. So I think it also builds great competition early on that will continue to allow guys to want to be better throughout the summer ranks as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the wide receiver room, and you've kept mentioning the wide receiver room. Tell me which wide receiver in this transfer portal class that really has your attention.
I'm excited about them all. It's a great question. Again, I may go Isaiah Spencer. I think I've said this with you before, but I think that in terms of a big numbers now, he's not going to be that. But I think he is very physical, has good size, has really good hands. And I watched some of his tape at JSU and at Virginia Tech. Don't be afraid to put him on the slot if you're Ole Miss. I think he's a guy that can play outside and in. And I think with his size, especially playing in the slot position and being on the inside sometimes, and maybe just going on a quick slant route across the middle, will be very pivotal to maybe get some undersized safeties on him when they're going, back and now having to come downhill to try to tackle him. I think he can be really pivotal in those 3rd and shorts, those 4th and shorts when you want to throw the ball, and as well can be very effective in the red zone. I won't say a similar player like Deshaun Tribling, but I think can provide some big moments in those crucial moments like Deshaun Tribling did this past season for Ole Miss. But I think that Ole Miss attacked a lot of quality receivers that, again, will bring a different dynamic to this team, that some guys can be really good street guys because of their speed. Some guys can be big, Randy Moss type players and go up and make a catch on a defender's head. Some guys can be very effective in the slot that will give you opportunities to get the middle of the field open and attack the middle of the field to allow the open parts and the outside parts of the field to be open. So I think this receiver room is really, really deep this year. And I think all these guys are coming to make a name as well. I don't think there was that marquee guy like a Deshaun Shibling or a Harrison Wallace coming in, or a Trey Harris a few years ago. I think all these guys are honestly coming in and ready to get to work and ready to grind and really to kind of put to the knots to the shoes and really prove that they're ready to play at this type of level of football.
Yeah, the wide receiver that I'm looking forward to, and anybody's listened to this show over the course of the last couple of months, they know how I feel about Jonte Cook.
Yeah.
I covered him at the Under Armour All-American game. There's been 2 players since I've been doing that, and I've been going every single year for about the last half decade. There's been 2 players that stood out and just made me go, wow. One was Zach Branch, the wide receiver at Georgia, and the other was Jonte Cook. He's the guy that can just do everything on a football field, and if you unlock him, you've basically unlocked Elijah Moore at that point.
Yeah, and Elijah Moore would be really, really good for Trinidad Chambliss in year 2, especially with the quick checkdowns he likes to run sometimes, and understanding the pre-snap motions that he does. Especially when, I think a lot of teams over the season for Ole Miss this past year really started to press a little bit more because of understanding the ability that the wide receiver room had this past year. And when you get a guy like that, he can provide things long, middle passes, short passes that can really be effective for Ole Miss in the upcoming year.
All right, so when we come back, Ole Miss actually added a couple of names to their coaching staff. Got a little bit better. We'll explain exactly what that means with Dalen Flowers coming up next. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand things off and move on about your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have taxes done right by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without all the stress and guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local expert in person to connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every single deduction. If you can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app, it's a huge time saver. It gives a real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local and book your appointment today. All right, so Ole Miss brought in a couple of new coaches. Now, it's not big name coaches. Don't expect that to happen. But whenever you want to look at it, Aaron Orr, who has coached tight ends, I believe, at East Carolina, but most recently was an analyst, and Cam Nichols, who was a graduate assistant and a graduate of Clemson, hilariously enough, comes in. And this is what these analyst hires do, in my opinion, Dalen. So Aaron R. Auer and Cam Nichols, they provide something specific that John David Baker liked. This isn't a situation of hiring your friends. This is them doing something that you like. Think of it similarly to what Lane Kiffin did with the hiring of Charlie Weiss Jr. He liked Charlie Weiss Jr.'s photographic memory, brought him into the booth to make their offense a little bit more dynamic. Every time a hire like this is made, it's usually for a reason if a coach did not come directly with the coach. So the fact that it's taking months lets you know that, okay, they could not find somebody to replicate this. These guys do certain things very well that unlocks this offense.
Yeah, I think that coming in, I really don't think people really, I guess, emphasize enough the point of how important analysts are for teams. I think, again, don't hear me saying comparing these two people, but I remember Zach Arnett coming in from Mississippi State a few years ago, and how, I guess, just vital he was for the Ole Miss defense in 2024 in terms of being, a helping hand for Pete Golding and his experience. I'm not saying that these guys have that same experience or resume, but I think these guys are going to come in and, like you said, provide things of help, but also be another pair of eyes that John David Baker may sometimes miss at this point. And I think that when you have young guys out there analyzing the game, they're understanding that the way of football is being played, it may be different than it was for other coaches that may not be able to evaluate and adapt to what the game of college football is today. So I love the hires. I think that JDB did a fantastic job at ECU last year and really develop a culture that I think if you take anywhere in the country can be effective and successful. And like you said, he's manipulating this to a proper stance. Like all of these moves that are being made from the offensive perspective are being numerically analyzed. Like they're doing this for a reason. They're taking their time, and this is not something that Pete Golding is looking at. It's like, okay, we're gonna have to rebuild for a year or two. No. They're coming in hot again for 2026, and the staff that has been assembled is definitely understanding the landscape of what needs to be done to compete. But also, a lot of these guys have major experience throughout the college football ranks and understand what it takes to be successful as well.
All right, before we get out of here, Trinidad Chambliss gets his waiver. The game of the year next year, Ole Miss versus Texas?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if that. I think that it could be. I think that Ole Miss, Texas, and Austin will be definitely fun. But I guess I got to go with the cliche answer, say Ole Miss LSU. Honestly, just in terms
Well,
of
that's going to be the media attention game, but the
yeah.
game of the year would be the other one. So, all right, Dalen, thank you so much. What do you got going on at Ole Miss 365 this week, bud?
Getting ready for baseball coming up, which is I'm super excited to about. See me in that realm a little bit more this year than you've ever seen me before. So excited about that. Working on some things with a few players as well, and as well building on softball. And obviously, it's February before spring ball will be here, so I'm getting in the realm of that as well, and basketball. So fully loaded, excited to be a part of Ole Miss 365, and just ready to continue attacking everything for Ole Miss.
All right, Dalen, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Ole Miss. We're going to continue to talk about the transfer portal all week, so make sure you subscribe and follow the shows so you can get all of the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure to make your second listen Locked On College Football. Getting close to spring football. Baseball is getting ready to start. Pitchers and catchers report today. Hope everybody is ready to go. Anyway, hotty toddy.